So Red Roselle Hibiscus, or Florida cranberry, Jamaican sorrel, Jamaican hibiscus, and many other names, is an easy plant to grow. You put it in the spring, it grows throughout the summer with beautiful dark green leaves, but it doesn't produce its fruit until the fall, which is right now. And so I've been harvesting some of my Red Roselle Hibiscus. It's so beautiful. You could definitely put it in your flower garden. It will compete with any of the other flowers you grow, I guarantee you. It's just beautiful. But also, wow, the taste, just delicious. And it's so nutritious for you. Now, I did a video last year on Red Roselle Hibiscus, and I shared with you a great scone recipe that uses it, and there are so many uses for it. Most commonly, though, it's known for making tea. So today, come with me and I'll show you how I harvest my Red Roselle Hibiscus, talk about how to grow it and the many benefits of it, show you how to dry it, and there are a couple of different options for that, and show you how you can make this beautiful, delicious tea. But the timing of harvest, that's probably the most important thing to know about Red Roselle. I'll put the scientific name here on the screen for you. You want to get the timing right. And what you don't want to do is come in and harvest the calyces, some people say, before they're ready. So, for instance, this one right here at the top, it's still too small to harvest that. However, these right here below it, they're big, plump, juicy looking. Those are ready. Now, the actual official harvesting timing is 10 days after the flower has bloomed. So let's look at a flower then. Here's one right here. Aren't they gorgeous? They really do remind me of okra, but even prettier. Well, they're in the same family, so that makes sense. Just look at the pink shading on these petals. Anyway, these only bloom for a day. And the calyces, which are underneath there, well, they're ready to harvest 10 days after the flowers have bloomed. Of course, you can imagine that would be difficult to know when you have a bed with this many plants and this many calyces. That's why it's important to know what they look like when they're ready to harvest. So when the flower petals that are dried up there in the middle of the calyx have fallen off, or even if they're still stuck in there but they're super dry, and the calyx itself is larger and plump, well, then you know they're ready to harvest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this big bed, and I'm going to leave the calyxes that are small for a later date, probably in another week or so. I'll come back and get those. I certainly will enjoy the flowers as I'm harvesting. Look at how beautiful. But yeah, today, leaving all these little things to get much bigger and just harvesting the nice big ones. I think what I'm going to do, because there's not a lot of really big ones yet, I'm going to save these for tea. I'm going to plop them in my dehydrator, so simple. Let it do the work for me, drying those calyxes out so that I can put them up for the winter and have delicious, nutritious, cozy hibiscus tea all winter long. Well, I'm not going to wait till winter. I'm going to start really soon, actually, because it's so delicious. And then I will save the rest of the harvesting to do progressively as the weeks go by, and use those calyxes that are smaller now later in jams and scones and Red Roselle Hibiscus drinks. You know, a lot of people don't think to grow Red Roselle Hibiscus, or they've never even heard of it. And that's a real shame, because as you can see, the plants are gorgeous, the flowers are lovely, and the result is such a wide variety of things. Unlike other plants, the Red Roselle Hibiscus, or Jamaican sorrel plant, gives you so many different things from the calyxes. It gives you so many possibilities, so much potential to what you can use them for. That's really what I love about them. Another thing I love about them, though, is how very easy they are to grow. I have 16 or 18 plants here. I've lost count. And I started them all from seed. And they've just grown all summer. They don't mind the heat. They don't require a ton of water. And it's interesting, in this bed, the plants on this side the south side are much taller, but the plants on the other side, the north side, which get a little bit of shade from the chicken coop behind me and these taller plants, well, they started blooming their flowers and enlarging their calyxes much sooner than this side. It's kind of nice because I'm not overwhelmed by a huge harvest all at once. And the bed is clearly still full of lots more Rosella, so I'm very happy about that. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention that the leaves of the Red Roselle Hibiscus, the Jamaican sorrel, are edible. They're great in salads and super nutritious as well as yummy. Mostly I use them in baking, scones and cakes. This year I might even try it with apples to make a lovely pie filling. And of course, jams, and then the tea. And there is the Roselle Hibiscus that I have harvested today. Nice and plump. And I'm going to go inside and take these off the outer part of the calyx and leaving the seed pod that's on the inside. You can see it a little easier there. That seed pod comes in really handy when you're making jam because it's the thickener agent. Well, when you boil it, it releases the thickener agent. But these, I'm going to peel these outer parts off, put them in my dehydrator, and dry them for tea. Aren't they beautiful? So I've just washed all of the calyxes and now I'm going to put them in my dehydrator. I have a NESCO food and jerky dehydrator, as you can see there. And I'm going to set the temperature for 135 degrees Fahrenheit or 57 degrees Celsius. You can see that that's what's recommended for fruits and vegetables there. The NESCO comes with a great manual, but really this is pretty intuitive. As long as you follow the directions on the lid, I've never had a thing go wrong. So here you can see one of the petals from the calyx, and the little collar pieces that go all around the seed pod come off with it. They're all good to be dried to use for tea. So I'm just going to arrange all of these in here, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. So that's one layer done. You do want to arrange your pieces so that they're not really touching. That's best ideal for drying. And I've got lots of layers in this dehydrator, so I'm going to fill up as many as I need. So all 5 layers of the dehydrator are full, so I'll put the top on now. All right, the lid is on. And it's now turned on. So the NESCO dehydrator generally takes between 4 and 5 hours to do 5 layers of drying for something that's as thick as these calyxes are. So these should be done before I go to bed, since I go to bed late, and I will take them out then, or I can just turn off the dehydrator and leave them in it overnight and put them away tomorrow. These are the seed pods that are left. Now if I'm making jam, I will pop these in a pot of water, bring them to a boil, and the liquid that results is a great thickening agent for the jam. Well, it's past midnight now, but I wanted to share with you what the Red Roselle Hibiscus calyx sections look like after they've dried. As you can see, they get a lot smaller. That's what things do when they dry. However, we're still going to have plenty to put away for tea. After all, there's not a shortage of these. Plenty still out there in the garden. Now I'm going to take these 5 trays and put all of these pieces into glass jars so I can store them nice and safe and dry to be used all year round for tea. Now while I'm packing my tea jars, I thought I would share with you this special tray that comes with the NESCO dehydrator. As you can see, it's an insert with a grid pattern on it, and that's really helpful to keep things from sliding through the larger slots of the actual trays. And in fact, they have another kind of insert that's a solid one. And so on that one, I've made things like fruit leathers, because you could just spread out whatever you want on it since it's solid. Works really well. So here is the solid tray. And I also want to point out that the inserts actually come with the dehydrator. They're not extra. You don't have to pay more for them. They're part of the dehydrator package. and I've made good use of all of them. So again, that's the NESCO Food and Jerky Dehydrator, and I've used it so much. It's worked so well. I can barely remember drying foods other ways. And as you can see, it's right in the name, it also does dehydrate jerky for you. Now, we're a vegetarian household, so I've never used it for that, but you could. Hands down, it's definitely one of my most useful appliances. And if you live somewhere where it's either humid a lot or rains quite a bit, well, that kind of limits the amount of outdoor drying you can do. So this really works well and quickly. My Red Roselle Hibiscus was completely dry in 4 hours. And here's the end result. We have our dried Red Roselle Hibiscus safely stored in a glass jar. We don't want any humidity to get to it. And if it doesn't, this will last on your shelf, well, I'd say forever, but of course you're going to drink it, so it won't. Now, you might see the Red Roselle Hibiscus in a local store, especially if you have a store with, say, a Mexican focus nearby. They call it Jamaica, and they will often break the pieces down into smaller size. However, that's totally not necessary. Right now, these pieces are completely small enough to be used in your tea strainers, whatever the size, even this small size. Now, Red Roselle Hibiscus tea does taste delicious, but there's another reason I drink it, and that's because it's very good for you. Super high in nutrition, actually. It has a lot of vitamins and a lot of minerals. It's especially rich in vitamin C. It actually has 9 times the amount that citrus does. And it might surprise you, but it's full of iron as well as the B vitamins. Now, how much are you going to use? Oh, in a little container like this, you're going to fill it up to heaping. Now, if you want to measure it exactly, 1 to 2 teaspoons of it crumbled smaller would work great. But really, like with a lot of other recipes, whether they're things you're cooking or tea, you're going to want to experiment and see what you like best, because everybody will have a different taste. These strainers are really nice to use. They come with a little hook on the end, so you can hang them from a taller mug if you'd like. Otherwise, just sit it in your teacup. Now, Red Roselle Hibiscus smells divine as it steeps. Now, how long does it need to steep? 3 to 8 minutes. Again, I know that's a wide range, but you'll want to experiment. How rich and deep do you want the taste? Test it out at 3 or 4 minutes and see if that's strong enough for you. If not, let it steep for longer. Something else you can do is cover your teacup to keep the heat in, but it's really not necessary. Totally up to you. I like to use a saucer if I just want to cover a teacup. Now, I mentioned that the only possible problem in storing your Red Roselle Hibiscus might be humidity. If it's in an airtight container and there was no humidity within it before you sealed it, well, then you're fine. But the other time you need to be concerned about keeping it dry, not moist, is when you're actually drying it. Now, if you're using the electric dehydrator, as I did, you don't need to worry about that at all. You can, however, dry these naturally. You know, in the old days, they would just lay them out on a blanket or a screen. Nowadays, we have something a little better than that, though. If you want to air dry your Red Roselle Hibiscus, you can get a screened-in outdoor natural dehydrator, so the bugs can't get to it. And then the only thing you'll need to be concerned about is making sure that you dry it on very warm, dry days, not humid days. And if you live where there's humidity, then yeah, I think personally you should stick to an electric dehydrator or perhaps the oven, but it's super easy to burn things when you use the oven, so make sure you research that thoroughly before you try that. My suggestion, though, is to go with the electric dehydrator. Although I enjoy using my outdoor dehydrator occasionally, there's just so much time of the year, you know, when it's raining, for instance, that I can't use it to dry things, and so my electric dehydrator comes in super handy for, well, all kinds of things that I want to dry any time of the year. Look, you can see the tea starting to change color. Isn't that a lovely color? Yes, I let mine steep longer, about 7.5 minutes, because I do like a really strong taste. And I'll let you in on a secret. I will use this more than once. Really, it is that strong. In my opinion, it can definitely handle steeping twice. Now, a purist would say no, but works for me. And now to enjoy this tea. It has this bright citrus flavor, a real zing to it. That's actually probably why the commercial variety is known as Red Zinger tea. Now, I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the pods and the seeds that are inside of them. I mentioned that the pods, if you boil them, will go ahead and give you a great thickening agent, the pectin you need to make jams and such. But the seeds that are inside that pod are so valuable. You can see that each pod has a lot of seeds in it actually. And right now they're a creamy yellow color, quite immature. These would not grow new plants. In fact, you can't really do anything with the seeds themselves when they look like this. Now, these seeds will mature if left on the plant, but it takes a while. About 6 to 14 weeks after the flowers have bloomed, the seeds will be mature. And you'll know this because the pods will start to darken. They'll turn brown and they'll actually start to crack open and you'll be able to see the seeds inside. Now, as soon as you see that happening, as soon as that pod starts to crack open at all, and those seeds inside are brown or even black, you want to get them off the plant at that point because they very quickly, even overnight, can go to being fully open and the seeds will, spill out on the ground and be wasted. So you want to take those brown or black seeds, sometimes they'll be a little fuzzy looking, and you want to store them in a cool, dry place. You can store them in the refrigerator, but that's not necessary. They can go in an airtight jar or they can go in an envelope and then put the envelope in a sealed bag. The main thing is you want to keep them dry, absolutely no humidity or moisture involved. Then they'll be ready to plant in the spring. But there are other uses for the seeds. They're very high in protein. You can roast them, grind them, and then, well, some people say use them for coffee substitute. I haven't tried that, but perhaps it's just made my list of fun things to do this winter. But one thing you can do that's really easy and that I know tastes delicious and, of course, is nutritious, you can take those roasted ground seeds and sprinkle them on your salad, sprinkle them in soups, or even put them in bread and scone recipes. The one thing you don't want to do is let them go to waste. Now, I've been told that the Red Roselle Hibiscus makes a great substitute for rhubarb, so I'm going to experiment and try an apple hibiscus pie. Maybe I'll make a video about that coming up soon. Now, in the description below, I'm going to put a link to my NESCO Dehydrator as well as to my outdoor natural dehydrator because I can't imagine life without them as a gardener who likes to preserve what I harvest, and maybe you want to invest in something like that too. Or perhaps you might be thinking of gifts for a gardener in your life, and dehydrators, well, they definitely would make a great gift. The links I post are affiliate links, so if you end up purchasing something after following one of the links, I will earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. Don't mind me, I'm just enjoying my tea. Fall has finally arrived, and I couldn't be happier. Tea is so calming for me, kind of like being out in nature. You make sure to get some tea and get out and enjoy some nature yourself, okay? I'll see you again soon.